Going live in three, two. Hey, and welcome to JP Lamb's Patreon/YouTube channel. Premodern is the name. Magic the Gathering is the game. So sit back, relax, and enjoy a fun time with me. We're doing a deck tech check today with actually balancing things. So first off, let's give a quick shout out to our sponsors. As you can see here on the front screen, we have RypieMTGAlters and Star is it Magic Alters. Both of them are really good friends of mine doing some Magic Alters. If you're looking to not do anything with foils because they crimp and look stupid, you can't play with my camera, they get some alters done. They do some really cool stuff, some things that are tournament playable and some that are not. With Premodern, doesn't seem to be too playable for alters, which is the best part because we can use gold cards. Anyways, let's hop on into the deck. First off, I would love to kind of show you guys um, the deck list. So there's a card called Balancing Act. This is the first and foremost biggest card of the deck. It's kind of like Pox, which, as I'm sure a lot of you are noticing, is skyrocketing in price right now, going from like 14 cents to like $5. But anyways, this is the creme de la creme of the deck. Each player chooses a number of permanents he or she controls equal to the number of permanents controlled by the player who controls the fewest, then sacrifices the rest. Each player discards a card from his or her hand the same way. So this is really similar to the card Balance of Days of Old. This is like a terrible. See this one's cool. Each player sacrifices enough lands to equalize the number of lands and that player controls. The player who controls the fewest lands cannot sacrifice any in this way. Old school wording. All players then equalize cards in hand and then creatures in play in the same way. So it's pretty similar, but has a different effect. It's just counting permanents and cards in hand. And so that's very crucial to understanding that this deck kind of is a balanced deck. It's trying to optimize getting rid of your opponent's resources as quickly as possible. So let's shoot on over to the actual deck list. So first off, you're going to go ahead and have three balancing act, right? You're like, oh, it's like the namesake card of the deck. Why only three? Well, we'll get into that, but we're turning this into a Burning Wish package. Okay, so balancing act, awesome. Then you also have three very similar cards in Obliterate. Everyone knows what Obliterate does, but just for reiteration, Obliterate can't be countered, which is huge against blue decks. Destroy all artifacts, creatures, and lands. It can't be regenerated. What's interesting to note here is enchantments are a pretty big deal in pre-modern, so it does not destroy enchantments. Be very well aware of that. You're going to invest 8 mana, make sure an enchantment that's out is not going to wreck you. So now you have that. Now you're like, oh, cool, like I destroy all permanents, or I stack down to at least some more permanents in play and hand size. What's the benefit of that? I'm just going to go down to a few lands. Well, actually, there's these really cool sack lands that existed back in the day. We have cards like Ruins of Trocaire, which is tapped for white, or tapped sack for white, comes into play tapped. Same things with Dwarven Ruins, but it's for red. Then you have other cards in here like Havenwood Battleground for green. And then you have some stuff that popped up in the Invasion block to help with color coordination because there's so many colored decks in Invasion. So Irrigation Ditch you have a 4 of, and also Tinder Farm you have a 4 of. And then you have some lands that don't come into play tap but do something pretty interesting by adding either colored mana in Archaeological Dig or actually Crystal Vein, which actually adds color or double colorless. And then I just have this Timberland Ruins because it balances out the community of the deck. But as you can see, all these cards can be sacked for mana, which then puts your balancing act in a way better situation because you're actually down to 0 lands or 1 land, which then forces your opponent to do the same. All right, so let's quick clean this up. This is kind of the meat and potatoes of the deck. And so the thing is, once you get rid of your opponent's sound and resources, what do you want to do with it? Well, you don't want to slam some huge fatties, but what you can do is play this really cool card, which is Annual Brushhopper. This card used to be the talk of the town back in the day when damage on the stack actually existed, but it's discard 2 cards, pretty much phase it out until end of turn. And then, so what you're doing there is actually protecting it. So if you have this in play already, you cast Obliterate or Balancing Act, discard 2 cards from your hand, it leaves play, then the effect takes place, it comes back to probably entirely cleared board state, and you just have a 3/4 on board and they have no lands in play. Or even down to no cards in hand either, depending on the cards in your hands. But if you have the extra mana laying around, might as well just slam a Terror. This bad boy gets real big real fast. I'm sure you've seen some of the Armageddon style decks, like land tax, Zero Norm types of decks running around. This boy gets really big. When you're putting a bunch of lands in his graveyard, both yours and your opponent's, he gets real big real fast. So now we'll kind of get into what I was talking about earlier before, which is actually the Burning Wish package. Again, Burning Wish is one in a red sorcery. Go grab a sorcery from outside the game, which is technically your sideboard position. So you're actually having the opportunity to grab another Obliterate or a Balancing Act, also a bunch of other cards, because you might as well have a full-blown Burning Wish package, which we'll get into momentarily when we get to the sideboard. Then what comes down to is just color coordination and understanding how to actually filter those colors. You have 4 Tinderwalls to actually block some immediate attackers. One thing to be very wary of, or not wary of, but interesting little tip here is sacking it actually does 2 damage to creatures block. So they attack with actually a very critical creature and blocks. You might be able to steal some games that way. But in reality, it's just there to great double red to get out your obliterate or even fuel a balancing act to turn earlier than expected. And then you have all the filtration cards like Chromatic Sphere, and then you have 4 Urza's Bauble just to kind of filter through your deck. This creates a 56 card deck essentially. And then because blue is running rampant, we have 3 Orange Chant and then 2 Fire Ice. These cards are the 5 cards that are kind of flexible in any regard, depending on the meta itself. But overall, you're really trying to do is just kind of slam some obliterates, balancing acts once or twice per game, and then just have some daddies come in and smash and clean up all the situations after that. So, pretty straightforward deck, super complex, super complicated to play well, pretty straightforward from a perspective of what the deck is trying to accomplish. It's trying to sacrifice all its permanents to wreck your hand and then overrun you by recovering faster or with better threats. So with that, we'll hop on over to the sideboard. I usually don't do sideboard guides for my YouTube channel, but for this, I'll specifically do it because this deck has a wish board and there's not a whole lot of thinking of what's going on in the sideboard or how to actually go about it. So first off, we have Overmaster. It is the next sorcery spell you cast this turn can't be countered, draw a card. Awesome for protecting your balancing act, or another thing that's kind of super important for you to cast to actually survive, right? Obliterate, remember, can't be countered. And then you have Moment's Peace, right? These come in for the aggro matchups. Probably take out 2 Orm's Chance for stuff like this because Fire Ice is actually really good in aggro matchups. Fire can deal 2 damage anywhere you choose, so 1 and 1 or 2 and 0, 2 and 0, which is actually pretty awesome. Pyroclasm, I would definitely leave in the sideboard to be grabbed with Burning Wish, but it's actually fantastic. By the way, best art, best actually card set is Ice Age one. My personal favorite of that. Obliterate, as you can see, again, another white bordered one. Just people have more tilt than they usually are instead of getting the black bordered ones. Another balancing act. Hull Breach. This card is absolutely fantastic. It destroys an artifact or an enchantment or both. And again, artifacts and enchantments are running rampant in Premodern. So just for a red and green, and probably a red and a colorless addition to it, by grabbing with Burning Wish, you can actually totally just destroy some things that are very critical to your opponent's game plan. Reanimate, a card that's super overlooked. This is awesome. It can grab cards out of your opponent's graveyard that are a bunch of fatties, or it can grab Terravor. It only costs you 3 life. And you have like a huge Terravor come back after like mid to late game when there's like 10, 12, 15 lands in the graveyard. Remember, Terravor has trample. It is very good. 2 more instances here, which actually are not good for grabbing with Burning Wish. Burning Wish only grabs sorceries. Is going to be Rare Revelation. What I'm always harping on, which a lot of people are knowing, are understanding and know all about the format, is the fact that enchantments are a big deal in Premodern, which is why I love it. I don't like Planeswalkers that much. I love the enchantment aspect of it. The fact that this has flashback is huge. That's why we're choosing something that's not a sorcery. It's because actually you get a chance to destroy 1 or 2, 3 or 4 total enchantments on these. The next one is Meltdown, which is a huge card to grab off Burning Wish and to actually destroy a bunch of artifacts. In the first tournament I played, it was a huge game winner for me in one of my matches. Then, of course, you can't leave home without 4 Tormund scripts. And you have this one awesome little promo here from Alter by RypieMTGAlters, one of my really good friends who does some really cool stuff. Plus, you can't tell which Tormund script is from because there's so many different producer Tormund script. You can only guess that it's like the most expensive one. It's not. But yeah, this deck's actually a ton of fun. I actually played it in my first ever pre-modern tournaments. I was actually in one of the pods for the monthly. Some of the cards I had in the mail for another deck I wanted to play did not come in, and then turns out my Prospect Bloom deck wasn't that competitive yet, so I'm still working on it. So I had the joy of actually playing through this, and it was actually a ton of fun. I made a lot of wrong decisions, either waiting too long to actually cast a balancing act, or now obliterating, or trying to jam a creature out when I shouldn't have, or just understanding what I was playing against. But that's kind of the benefit of playing pre-modern and how awesome and exciting it is and how open the format is is you don't always know what you're playing against. You don't know how to play against it. There's a lot of decisions to be made. There's a lot of sideboard choices to be made based on the meta you think you're going to see. So if you like kind of a slow, grindy deck that has a huge kind of punch for a knockout punch for a finish without finishing the game, or you like playing Pox, you know, like the color black, or you just want to buy Pox because it's going up in value by 500% from like $1 to $5. I definitely recommend checking this out. It's actually a super fun deck. I think there's some really cool tweaks you can make to actually make it a little more competitive, more fun, kind of depending on your meta. But I definitely recommend checking out the Balancing Things Act. With that, we'll hop on over one more time to our sponsors. Check it out. Remember, Twitch, RypieMTGAlters, Etsy is RypieMTGAlters, and also Star Isn't Magic on Facebook, Instagram, and check out her YouTube. She has a lot of really cool free giveaways. Hope you guys enjoyed this little deck tech and quickie sideboard guide on Balancing Tings.